Black billionaire hears janitor. Speak 9 languages. What he does next stuns everyone. Malik Donovan had built his empire from silence. Not from screaming headlines or flashy exposés, but from the kind of discipline that makes men dangerous. Quiet mornings, sharp eyes, and listening more than he spoke. As the founder and CEO of Donovan Global Holdings, a logistics powerhouse that spanned 5 continents, he had heard nearly every accent under the sun. But nothing, not in Shanghai, not in Geneva, not even in Johannesburg, prepared him for what he overheard that Monday morning. He was on his way through the glass lobby of the downtown Seattle headquarters, a sleek tower of steel and ambition, sipping his usual black Americano. The place buzzed with early hustle, heels clicking, badge scanners beeping, whispered updates over Bluetooth headsets. And then, like an odd harmony slipping into a familiar song, he heard it. Ze shi women de ju lu, ruguo nin shuyao bangju, wo kei dai nin ku sunshitai. Mandarin. But not the robotic textbook kind executives fumbled through during international calls. This was crisp, fluid, native-sounding. Malik slowed, scanning the space. Near the digital directory, an older Chinese man clutched a visitor badge and looked both confused and grateful. Standing beside him, pointing calmly toward the elevators, was a woman in a forest green janitorial uniform. Mid-30s, black, hair in short braids tied back in a bandana. Her posture was relaxed, her voice soft, but full of certainty. It took Malik a full second to realize what he was looking at. The janitor was giving directions, in flawless Mandarin. He blinked, stunned. She gave the man a reassuring nod, and as he walked off, turned to another waiting visitor. A man with a clipboard and a vendor shirt. She didn't pause. ¿Está buscando la sala de conferencias? Siga recto y doble a la izquierda. El ascensor B lo lleva directo. Spanish. Malik's heart knocked once. She was doing it again. Then she spun to a third guest, this time a woman holding French-labeled boxes, and said, La salle d'expédition est de l'autre côté. Prenez l'ascenseur à droite. Je vous y accompagnerai si vous voulez. French. His brain stuttered. Mandarin. Spanish. French. From a janitor who, as far as he knew, had no business being multilingual. She hadn't noticed him yet. She was too focused, too in flow. There was no grandstanding, no theatrics, just natural, competent fluidity, like language itself bent to her. Malik stepped forward, speaking carefully. Excuse me, that was French, right? She turned, surprised but not startled. Her eyes were deep brown, measured. Yes, sir, and Spanish. And Mandarin. You speak them fluently? Yes, sir. He squinted slightly. Anything else? Portuguese, Arabic, Swahili, Russian, and I read Latin. But I don't count that, int. 9 languages. There was no boast in her voice, no hint of showmanship, just fact. What's your name? Raina. Raina Cole. He extended a hand. Mr. Donovan. I'm the CEO. She hesitated only a breath before taking it. Nice to meet you, sir. I think you and I need to talk. Do you have a moment? Raina glanced at her mop, then back to him. Yes, sir. They stepped into the elevator together. The chrome doors shut with a soft hiss. Malik glanced sideways. How long have you worked here? Almost 6 years. I've never seen you before. I work nights. Most folks don't see us. He paused. Have you always been this multilingual? She gave a half smile. Yeah. Language kind of stuck with me. It's the one thing I could keep no matter where life took me. He nodded. Where did life take you? Raina exhaled. Cleveland. Then Atlanta. Now here. I had a scholarship for linguistics at Spelman. Made it halfway through before life shifted. My mom got sick. Then came bills. Then came my daughter. Priorities changed. They arrived at the top floor. The executive suite. The floor smelled like wood polish, glass, and quiet power. As she stepped out behind him, the receptionist's brows lifted. Malik didn't offer an explanation. He simply opened his door. Come in. The office overlooked Puget Sound. Everything inside was sleek. Dark wood, leather chairs, a silent espresso machine. He gestured toward a seat. She sat, straight-backed, but calm, not intimidated, just aware. He lowered himself across from her. You know, he began, I've flown in translators from 5 countries, paid consultants to help bridge cultural gaps. We've invested millions into international onboarding programs, and yet, he tilted his head. You're the most impressive linguist I've encountered in 3 years. And I almost walked past you. She said nothing. You don't want pity, he continued. I can tell. But I'm not offering pity. I'm asking a real question. Why are you here mopping floors? Raina folded her hands in her lap. Because I needed stable hours. My daughter needed rides home from school, and after 5 failed job apps where I didn't have the paperwork they wanted, I stopped trying. But you didn't stop learning. I can't. It's how I breathe. He watched her, really watched her. You know this is going to shake people. She shrugged. They'll recover. He laughed softly. I like you. Silence stretched between them. Then Malik leaned forward. I want you in a meeting this afternoon. Last-minute reschedule. Our Korean partners are flying in early and the translator bailed. I want to see you do this in the room. Raina's eyebrows lifted. You're serious? As a heart attack. She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. I'll need 15 minutes to clean up. Take 20. He stood. She followed. Before she walked out the door, she paused. Mr. Donovan? Yes? I don't do miracles. He smiled. Good. I don't need miracles. I need someone who knows how to speak. She disappeared down the hall, and Malik knew, with a certainty that made the back of his neck tingle, this wasn't going to be just a meeting. This was the start of something that would shake the building to its bones. The room fell quiet the moment Raina Cole stepped in. Conference room 16A was a polished glass fishbowl nested on the 20th floor, with views that stretched across the Seattle skyline and cast a hard white light onto the boardroom table. At one end sat 5 executives from Zhongquan Logistics, all in dark, tailored suits, their expressions unreadable behind polite smiles. At the other end was Malik Donovan, leaning back in his seat, tapping the tip of a pen against his knee with a rhythm that hinted at anticipation. The translator hadn't shown. Nobody expected a janitor to take their place. As Raina entered, every head turned. The room wasn't just quiet. It was tense, uncertain. A few people glanced toward Malik, expecting him to explain, to say something that made this make sense. But he didn't. He simply stood and gestured to the open chair beside him. Gentlemen, he said calmly, this is Ms. Cole. She'll be assisting us today. There was a blink of confusion. Then, one of the Korean executives, Mr. Min, leaned forward and said something in a soft, formal Korean dialect. Raina didn't miss a beat. She answered, not just with fluency, but with tone. Respectful, balanced, professional. Her Korean wasn't stiff. It had warmth. Nuance. Cultural rhythm. The air changed. Mr. Min's face shifted into a slow, surprised smile. His colleagues exchanged glances. The man sitting to his left, who'd been tapping his pen in impatience, sat forward, now genuinely attentive. Malik didn't say a word. Rayner translated seamlessly as the meeting moved through technical discussion, logistics timelines, contractual clauses, and customs regulations. When questions arose, she didn't just parrot responses, she contextualized them. When jokes slipped into the conversation, she delivered them back with timing. When one executive began listing potential shipment ports, she stopped him gently and corrected his pronunciation in English, then apologized in Korean with a light, self-deprecating laugh that had them chuckling in return. It was no longer a meeting, it was connection. And that's when the shift happened. 15 minutes in, Alan Crest, the company's chief strategy officer, cleared his throat loudly and leaned toward Malik. "Mr. Donovan," he said with forced diplomacy, "can we speak outside for a second?" Malik turned his head. "No, Alan. We're in the middle of something." Crest's nostrils flared, but he nodded tightly. The meeting resumed. After an hour, papers were signed, smiles exchanged, and the Korean team left satisfied. More than satisfied, actually. Mr. Min bowed deeply to Rayner before exiting. Not the perfunctory nod executives give. A full, respectful bow. As the room cleared, Alan didn't wait. He stormed over to Malik. "Do you have any idea how that looked?" Malik looked up slowly. "You mean impressive?" "She's a janitor, Malik." "HR hasn't vetted her. We don't have any background clearance." "Alan, you've been with me for 10 years. "Yes. And in those 10 years, how many people have walked into this company, sat through one of our global meetings, and walked out having made every person at that table feel heard and respected?" Alan hesitated. "Exactly," Malik said. "She embarrassed no one. She elevated everyone." Alan glanced toward the door, then lowered his voice. "People are going to talk." "They always do," Malik replied. "Now are we done here because I have an offer to write?" Alan's eyes widened. "You're kidding!" Malik's voice dropped an octave. "Does it look like I'm kidding?" Rayner was waiting just outside the conference room, her posture still, her hands folded in front of her. He walked over, slow and deliberate. "You good?" he asked. She nodded. "They were easier than I expected." He smiled. "They weren't. You made it look easy." There was a pause. Then he said, "Walk with me." They walked side by side down the corridor, passing curious stares and whispered reactions. People noticed. Some frowned, some looked away, a few smiled and stepped aside. At the end of the hallway, Malik opened the door to a side lounge, empty except for a long window seat overlooking Elliott Bay. He motioned for her to sit. She did. He remained standing. "I've been in business long enough to know when I'm looking at wasted potential," he said. "And I've seen enough systems to know they rarely reward the people who work the hardest." "You know how rare your skill is?" Rayner shrugged. "Rare doesn't always matter when rent's due." "That's exactly why it should." He paused. "I want to offer you a role. Not a promotion, a reinvention. I want you to be our international relations liaison. Direct access to executive strategy meetings, coordination with vendors, language assessment and oversight for cross-cultural staff. A real office, real authority. She stared at him. "Just like that?" "No," he said. "Not just like that. Because of what I saw in that room, what I heard in the lobby. And what I believe about who you are. You don't even know me. I know enough. And if I'm wrong, then I'll be the one who misjudged. But I don't think I am." Rayner leaned back, her breath tight in her chest. "What if I mess it up?" "Then you'll learn. But I don't think you will." Silence stretched. Finally, she said, "Can I think about it?" Malik smiled. "I'd be worried if you didn't." She stood, and for the first time since they met, she extended her hand first. "Thank you." "I don't know what this is going to mean yet, but thank you." He took her hand, firm and steady. "You'll find out." Later that night, Raina sat on her worn couch, a cup of tea on the coffee table, her daughter asleep in the next room. She stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then she opened her old laptop and began searching phrases she'd never typed before. Professional business attire for women, how to write an executive bio, and finally, how to believe you belong when no one expected you to be. Because something had shifted, and tomorrow she wouldn't be holding a mop. She'd be holding her future. The first real test came on her third day. It started like most days on the executive floor. Quiet murmurs over cappuccinos, muted shoe clicks on polished floors, the rustle of paper from printouts no one would ever fully read. But under the calm surface, tension rippled. A delegation from their new Istanbul partner company had arrived 2 days early. Their interpreter had been delayed due to visa issues. Meetings had been scheduled without language support, and the company's director of international development, Greg Halverson, was already in damage control mode by the time he stalked past Raina's office. She was reviewing product specs in Portuguese when he appeared at her doorframe. "Do you speak Turkish?" he snapped, not even offering a greeting. Raina looked up calm. Conversationally, not fluently. Greg rubbed his temple. "Close enough. You're coming with me." "Excuse me? I need someone in the room, now." He didn't wait. Just turned and walked off. She hesitated. The authority wasn't his, but the need was real. She stood, grabbed a notepad, and followed. The conference room was already half full. 2 Turkish executives were seated, their posture stiff but polite. Greg launched into a clumsy welcome, punctuated by stammered phrases and jargon-heavy slides. Raina took a quiet breath, stepped beside him, and gently spoke in Turkish. "Merhaba, hoş geldiniz. Umarım yolculuğunuz iyi geçmiştir." The men blinked, then smiled faintly. One leaned forward and responded in his native tongue. Raina nodded, translated seamlessly. "Mr. Kara says they're honored to be here and look forward to aligning values with our team." The mood shifted. Shoulders dropped. Eyes met. Greg tried to jump back in, but Raina had already taken control, not aggressively, but by presence. She listened, translated, clarified points he missed. When she saw a miscommunication about shipping schedules, she paused the meeting and drew a simple diagram on the whiteboard to reset understanding. By the end of the hour, the Turkish team looked visibly at ease. Greg, meanwhile, was sweating through his shirt. After the guests left, he turned to her in the hallway, his voice tight. "You didn't tell me you could do that. You didn't ask." His jaw clenched. "Just don't overstep." "Your support, not the lead." Raina looked at him, calm but firm. "Then don't put me in the lead seat." He scoffed and walked off, muttering something about optics. Later that afternoon, Malik popped into her office without knocking. He had that unreadable look, one that usually meant he was either annoyed or impressed. "You handled Kara's team today?" She nodded. "They were struggling with the technical presentation. Greg needed help. You saved that deal." "I did my job." "You did more than that." Raina hesitated. Greg wasn't thrilled. Malik folded his arms. "Greg has had 7 years to build trust with our partners and still can't remember how to say thank you in anything but English." "Don't worry about Greg." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm not trying to burn bridges." "You're not, but you are shining light under them." Not everyone likes what they see. She let that sit for a moment, then asked, "Why keep someone like him in a role like that?" Malik gave a dry laugh. "Because sometimes legacy and loyalty get confused. He's been with the company since my father ran it. Removing him outright would rattle the wrong donors. But trust me, his seat is not permanent." Rayner nodded slowly, understanding more about the building's hierarchy than anyone had explained outright. "Can I make a request?" she asked. "Always." "I want to lead the call with the Singapore group next week. No interpreter." "Just me." Malik tilted his head. "You fluent in Mandarin or Malay?" "Both." A beat passed. "Done." He turned to leave but stopped at the door. "You're making waves, Rayner." She looked back to her screen. "Waves only matter if they reach the shore." After he left, she sat for a long time, staring out the window. Then she picked up her phone and called her daughter. "You'd be proud," she said. "I already am," came the reply. That night, as Rayner left the building, she passed a group of junior staffers outside near the rideshare pickup. One of them, a young white guy in a Patagonia vest, turned to his friend and said just loud enough, "That's the janitor Malik brought upstairs, right? Heard she's fluent in unicorn tears or something." The others laughed. Rayner didn't flinch. She kept walking, but what they didn't know was that inside her tote bag was a draft proposal she'd been working on for weeks, an internal training initiative for non-executive staff across departments, focused on cross-cultural communications, leadership, and advancement. It was titled Brilliance in the Background. And tomorrow, she'd leave it on Malik's desk, because she wasn't just filling a seat anymore. She was building a table. The first memo came in subtly. An internal email marked "For Review" sent from Human Resources, requesting Rayner Cole's documentation for executive clearance. It was phrased neutrally, all proper grammar and soft legalese. But the message beneath it was clear. Someone was checking whether she belonged. Rayner read it twice, then once more, before forwarding it to Malik with a single line. "Thoughts?" Within 20 minutes he responded, "Ignore it. I'll handle it." But it didn't stop there. The next day, her keycard failed to open the executive lounge. She stood there, awkwardly holding her lunch, until a passing finance associate used their badge to let her in. No one said anything. They just watched her, like someone who'd taken the wrong elevator and didn't know it. Later that afternoon, a new team calendar circulated, weekly department heads meetings, with every senior officer listed except her. Rayner scrolled down the list 3 times. No mention of her name, her new title, or even her initials. She closed her laptop gently, breathed. That evening, she caught Malik in the hallway outside the strategy room. His coat was slung over one shoulder, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw her, he held up a finger, wrapped up his call, and turned. "You saw it?" she asked. "I did. Was it an oversight?" "No." Silence. He sighed. "Some people aren't ready for you to be at the table." "I didn't even ask for a chair." "You earned one anyway." She looked up at him. "Malik, I can fight my own fights. But if I keep getting left out of meetings, it's not a battle." "It's sabotage." "I know. I'll fix it." "You said that yesterday." "I meant it yesterday. I still mean it now." She nodded slowly. "Then give me access. Let me do more than wait for someone else to let me in. Put me in the room where it's hardest." Malik studied her. "Are you sure?" She gave a dry chuckle. "I wasn't sure when I was cleaning the stairwells either. But I still showed up." He gave a sharp nod. "Okay, there's a board committee meeting on Friday, a quiet one." "Old money, old blood, old biases. I'll get you a seat." "No, don't get me a seat. Just don't stop me when I pull up one myself. Friday arrived like a slow drumbeat. The boardroom on the 32nd floor was unlike the others. No glass, no view, just thick walnut walls, a long polished table, and chairs that creaked like they held secrets. Raina stepped in wearing a navy blazer, subtle gold earrings, and a confidence tailored tighter than her suit. The room fell silent. Eleanor Prescott, board member emeritus and 75 years of high society in a sharp maroon jacket, gave her a once-over. "Miss Cole, was it?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're early." "I've been early my whole life." It's how you catch what others miss. A flicker of something unreadable passed over Eleanor's expression. Malik entered a minute later, nodding at Raina without fanfare, and took his seat. The meeting began. Budget revisions, equity reallocation, expansion forecasts. And then came the segment on global relations. Malik turned to Raina. "Ms. Cole has an update." Every eye turned, some curious, some skeptical. One or two outright dismissive. Raina stood. "We've been losing money, subtly but steadily, on international vendor discrepancies. Poor translations, cultural mismatches, delayed customs entries due to improperly worded cargo manifests. You don't notice it in quarterly profits, but they add up, and they undermine our credibility globally." She walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, wrote 3 phrases: communication, consistency, culture. This isn't about language, it's about trust. When a partner in Tokyo hears someone speak their dialect with precision, they don't just hear words. They hear respect, and trust makes contracts stick longer than any clause ever will. Someone cleared their throat. A board member named Ray Sanderson, tie askew, silver cufflinks flashing. "Impressive talk, Ms. Cole, but is there data behind this assertion?" Raina nodded. "Slide 6 in your packet." There was a brief shuffle of papers. Eyes dropped to the packet. Numbers spoke. Silence grew heavier. Malik watched it all like a man seeing a chess move unfold 3 turns ahead. When Raina sat, Eleanor Prescott leaned forward, fingers steepled. "You speak well, Ms. Cole." "I listen better." "You have passion, but passion doesn't run companies." "No, ma'am," Raina replied, her tone steady. "But blind tradition doesn't build futures either." The room shifted. Something cracked. Quiet but unmistakable. After the meeting, as the board members filed out with murmured comments and unreadable glances, Eleanor lingered. She looked at Malik. "She's not like the others." Malik replied simply, "No." "She's better." That night, Raina walked home in the rain. No umbrella, just thoughts. Her phone buzzed, a text from her daughter. "Mom?" "You were trending on the company's Slack. People are talking." "Good or bad?" Raina typed back. "Both." "Which means you're doing something right," she smiled. And as thunder rolled over Seattle's skyline, she knew something was different now. She wasn't just in the building anymore. She was rewriting its walls. The internal backlash didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came in silence. Pauses in conversations when Raina walked into rooms. Emails that used to copy her now mysteriously omitted her. Projects she'd been leading suddenly reassigned to more experienced staff. But what hit hardest weren't the politics. It was the shift in faces. People who'd smiled 2 weeks ago now avoiding eye contact. Or worse, offering empty pleasantries with forced cheer. Malik warned her this would happen. "This company doesn't like change unless it's packaged in a press release," he had told her. But knowing and feeling are 2 different beasts. On a grey Tuesday morning, Raina entered the elevator with 3 mid-level directors. No one spoke. One man, Steve from procurement, clutched his coffee tighter and stared straight ahead as if his silence could erase her presence. She didn't take it personally. She took it as proof. Later that afternoon, her keycard buzzed red at the research wing. Again. For the third time that week, she didn't call it. She didn't call Malik. She walked to facilities and got a new one herself. But by Thursday, it escalated. A notice arrived on her desk. A formal audit of her qualifications. Someone had filed an anonymous concern with HR questioning her credentials. No name, no signature, just enough ink to stain everything she'd built. Raina read the letter twice, her fingers curling at the edges. At lunch, she found Malik outside on the building's east terrace, drinking coffee with Victor Brayton, the company's global director. Brayton wore his usual smugness like a tailored scarf, tight and calculated. Raina waited until Victor left before stepping forward. "They're digging," she said. "I heard." "You gonna tell me to ignore this too?" Malik looked at her over his coffee. "No, this one's different." "How so?" "Because it's calculated, not petty. Someone's afraid you'll climb faster than they can control." She crossed her arms. "And you?" "I'm not afraid of your ascent, Raina. I'm banking on it." He sipped, then added, "I'll make calls." "No," she interrupted, voice hardening. "Don't. Let me handle it." He nodded slowly. "Then handle it." The next morning, Raina walked into the HR director's office, holding a slim folder. She placed it on the desk without sitting. "You received a complaint. This is my response." The woman behind the desk, grey suit, hair in a sharp bun, opened the file. Inside were printouts, her college transcripts, enrollment verification, letters from former supervisors, recommendation notes from professors. Proof. Not because she had to justify herself, but because she chose to take away every excuse they had to doubt her. The HR director flipped through it all, then looked up. "Ms. Cole, I'm sorry this reached your desk in the first place. This shouldn't have happened." "But it did," Raina replied evenly. "Yes." "And it reflects poorly on our vetting processes." "No," Raina said, her voice steady. "It reflects poorly on your people. Vetting is easy when you're looking for the right signs." "The problem is, no one was looking for me to succeed." The woman looked down, chastened. "We'll close the case today. You're fully cleared." "Good." "Because I'm just getting started." That evening, she stayed late, not to finish a presentation, but to think. The company's rooftop garden was empty, winds cool against her blazer. She leaned on the railing and stared at the city lights, each one like a small victory she hadn't yet claimed. Behind her, a familiar voice. "Didn't know you were still here." It was Alan Crest, polished, composed, still wearing the same arrogance she remembered from day one. "I live here now," Raina replied without turning. He chuckled. "I heard about the HR complaint." "You handled it cleanly." "Did I? I expected you'd lash out, make a scene, play the victim." She turned. "Why? Because that's what you would have done if you were in my place?" He smiled tightly. "Touché." There was a long pause before he added, "People are watching you, Raina. Some want you to fail. Others hope you succeed just enough to prove they're not the problem. And you? I want to know if you're as good as Malik says." She met his gaze. "What if I am? Then you'll outlast us all." She turned back to the skyline. "Then maybe I will." As Alan left, she stayed behind, pulled out her phone, opened a message thread with her daughter. Typed, "You were right. They're not ready." Then added, "But I am." Hit send, because this wasn't about fitting in anymore. It was about pushing forward, no matter who tried to pull her back. The storm didn't break with thunder. It came in the form of an email. Subject: Performance Evaluation, Reassessment, Raina Cole. Time: 9:00 a.m. Location: Conference Room 7C. Required: Executive Oversight Panel, present. Raina stared at the screen, expressionless. No context, no warning. Just a time, a room, and the implication that she was suddenly under formal review. Again. Malik was out of town in Dubai for a summit. Alan Crest was listed as interim oversight. And Greg Halverson, her favorite nemesis, had mysteriously CC'd himself on the calendar invite. It didn't take a genius to read between the lines. Still, Raina showed up 10 minutes early, notebook in hand, pressed blazer on, hair neatly pulled back. She didn't dress for a fight. She dressed like someone who had already won and was just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Inside the room sat 3 people: Alan, Greg, and Eleanor Craig. Eleanor's presence made Raina pause for just a beat. The board member was rarely on site unless something was brewing behind the scenes, and she never came unless she planned to control the room. "Ms. Cole," Eleanor said without looking up from her papers. "Take a seat." Raina did. Calm, measured. Alan cleared his throat. "Let's begin. This is a preliminary review of your recent assignments, conduct, and role suitability." "My role has been reviewed already," Raina said. "Yes," Greg interjected. "But given recent frictions in department workflow and client protocol inconsistencies, it's appropriate to reassess." Raina folded her hands. "Meaning?" Greg smiled like a man who thought he was being clever. "We've received feedback that your presence in senior-level meetings has disrupted existing reporting structures. You mean I bypassed you, and you didn't like it?" He blinked. Eleanor finally looked up. "Ms. Cole, let me be frank. The board is concerned with precedent. You were elevated unusually fast. There are questions. About performance. About optics." There it was. The word they'd been dancing around for weeks. Raina leaned forward. "You mean because I don't look like you expected?" "Because I don't have a title from Wharton, because I learned languages in libraries and not at embassy dinners." Alan shifted, visibly uncomfortable. "You were promoted without going through the formal leadership pipeline," Eleanor pressed. "I was promoted because I proved I could do what no one else here could." "According to who?" Raina didn't break her stare. "According to the results. Istanbul, Seoul, Sao Paulo. Every stalled deal I've been pulled into has closed or progressed within 48 hours. Greg scoffed. "And you think that justifies skipping protocols?" "No," Raina said. "I think performance does." Eleanor leaned back, tapping her pen. "We're considering a restructuring. Your current title would be reassigned under a new department, reducing your decision-making authority until further review." Raina held her breath for a moment. Then she smiled. "May I speak candidly?" Eleanor gave a slight nod. "I've sat in rooms with heads of state and street vendors alike. I've translated dialects so nuanced they don't even appear in textbooks. And in every one of those rooms I've learned something." She paused. "But never have I learned more than I have in this building. About fear, about control, about the lengths people will go to protect their perception of power. You brought me up because I was effective. Now you want to box me in because I'm visible." Greg crossed his arms. "Don't make this personal." "It's always been personal," Raina shot back. "For years I was invisible. You liked me better then." "But I'm not going back." Silence. Then the door opened. Malik Donovan walked in. The entire room shifted. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, stepping inside with a casual calm that masked fury. But I think this meeting just got an audience upgrade. Eleanor stood. Malik, this isn't protocol. He held up a hand. Spare me. I read the emails on the flight. I saw the attached memo, and I saw the line you tried to slide past legal about limiting Rayna's strategic input. Greg's jaw tightened. We were only protecting the company's structure. No, Malik said. You were protecting your comfort zone. Rayna's doing work none of you can match, and your response is to demote her. Restructure her? Hell no. Eleanor's lips drew into a tight line. Malik, the board... The board answers to me, Malik said quietly. And this isn't about what Rayna's done wrong. It's about what she's done right. He turned to her. You still want this position? Rayna nodded. Then you keep it, not because of me, because of your results. And if anyone here wants to challenge that, I'll make sure their performance files get the same scrutiny. No one spoke. Eleanor gathered her papers. This isn't over. It is for today, Malik replied. She left. Greg followed, tight-lipped. When the door shut, Malik turned to Rayna. You all right? She exhaled. I'm tired of defending my seat. Then don't. Defend your right to build more seats. She smiled faintly. I left a proposal on your desk, internal mentorship for cross-department staff. He raised an eyebrow. Let's review it tonight. Over drinks? I don't drink with my CEO. Then it's tea, and an invitation. She nodded once. You're buying? He grinned. Of course. That evening, after the building dimmed and the suits went home, Rayna stood at her window and looked out over Seattle's lights. She hadn't just survived the review. She'd won a war they didn't even realize they'd declared. And the next day, she would begin preparing the blueprint to make sure no one else ever had to fight the same battle alone. The storm hadn't passed. It had only gone quiet. Whispers replaced direct confrontation. Meetings grew colder. Hallway conversations stopped when Rayna entered the room. She wasn't naive. She knew this wasn't about performance anymore. It was about disruption. And she had disrupted the flow of power. On Monday morning, a message landed in her inbox from Malik. Subject: Presentation Review. Voice Initiative Time. 4:00 p.m. Main Auditorium. Attached was a short note. Let's show them what building a ladder really looks like. The Voice Initiative had started as an idea in the margins of Rayna's notebook. A proposal to train and elevate employees from non-traditional backgrounds, janitorial, maintenance, admin, to prepare them for leadership based on merit and mentorship rather than degrees and pedigree. Now it was becoming real. She would speak in front of 300 staff, department heads, and board observers. By mid-afternoon, the auditorium buzzed. Some attendees were curious, others skeptical, and a few outright hostile. But Rayna walked to the podium with no script, no cue cards, just her story. She stood still for a moment, and then began. When I first stepped into this building, I was invisible. Not because I lacked value, but because I wore the wrong uniform. A ripple moved through the crowd. You passed me in elevators. You spoke over me in hallways. Some of you left your coffee cups in conference rooms, assuming someone like me would pick them up. Some people looked away. I didn't get bitter. I got better. I read. I listened. I taught myself 9 languages, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to understand everyone. A pause. And then one day someone listened back. She turned her head slightly toward where Malik sat near the front. I wasn't given this position. I earned it. And I want to make sure no one who deserves a chance has to wait for lightning to strike. She explained the Voice Initiative in detail. How it would include language access programs, executive mentorships, internal fellowships for promising blue-collar employees, how the company could grow stronger from within if it stopped treating potential like it had a dress code. The silence that followed was thick. Then, from the back, a janitor named Miguel stood and clapped once, then again. Someone near the middle joined. Within seconds, the room stood, applauding not just her words, but what they represented. But not everyone clapped. After the crowd thinned, Alan Crest approached her by the stage, his mouth tight, his tone colder than the air conditioning. "You're building a cult of personality," he said. "I'm building a culture of value," Raina replied. "You're eroding hierarchy." "I'm replacing it with equity." He stepped closer. "This company isn't a charity, Raina. It's not your personal revolution." She leaned in, voice low. "You're right." "It's not a revolution. It's a reckoning." He walked off, fuming. Later that evening, Malik met her on the rooftop terrace, Seattle's skyline burning orange under the setting sun. "I heard what Alan said," he murmured. "Want me to handle it?" Raina shook her head. "Let him spiral." "I'm not here to silence people. I'm here to make them think." Malik handed her a glass of tea. "The board called me." "They're conflicted." "Because I'm effective. Because you're undeniable." He sipped, then added, "One of them asked me if I really thought someone like you could lead a global department." "What did you say?" "I said, she already is." Raina smiled quietly, then looked out at the city. "You ever think it would come to this?" she asked. Malik didn't answer immediately. "No, I hoped, but I didn't think I'd see it happen this cleanly." "You're a catalyst, Raina, and people don't always welcome change. They fear it. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I know. But fear isn't about intent. It's about what you represent." They stood in silence, the wind brushing across the terrace. Below, the building lights flickered on, one by one. "You ready for what's next?" Malik finally asked. "No," she admitted, "but I'm going anyway." He raised his glass. "To the ones who go anyway." They clinked. Back in her office that night, Raina found an envelope on her desk. No name. Just her first initial on the front. Inside was a folded note and a key. The note read, "This opens the storage closet on sub-level 2. You should see what they used to store there. Might help your next speech." Intrigued, she took the freight elevator down. Sub-level 2 was quiet, dimly lit, dusty. She found the closet, turned the key, and opened it. Inside, she found dozens of old framed photos stacked against the wall, decades of the company's history. Most were glossy images of men in suits shaking hands in rooms of mahogany and marble. But in the back, she found something else. A black and white photograph, smaller than the rest, slightly torn at the corner. It showed a young black woman, wearing a janitor's uniform, standing outside the building's original headquarters in 1973. She held a mop in one hand, in the other, a notebook. And on her face, a look that mirrored Raina's exactly, determined, unapologetic, seen. She turned the photo over. A handwritten note read, "Cynthia DeLay, applied 3 times, got turned down each." But came back anyway. Raina smiled. She tucked the photo into her bag and walked back upstairs with a new fire in her chest. Because now she knew. She wasn't the first, but she damn sure wouldn't be the last. The Monday morning email hit the inboxes of every employee at Donovan Global Holdings just after 8:00 a.m. Sharp. Subject line, Policy Update, Internal Advancement Recognition Protocol. From Office of the CEO. The body was short, a handful of paragraphs. But what it said sent ripples through every floor of the company. Effective immediately, Donovan Global Holdings would be implementing a new pathway program, allowing non-managerial and operations staff to apply for executive training tracks, regardless of formal education, based solely on merit, internal recommendations, and language or cultural competencies. The program would be overseen by none other than Raina Cole. Some called it revolutionary, others radical, but one thing was certain: it was Raina's fingerprint, and everyone knew it. She walked into the building that morning, not in a power suit or tailored heels, but in her usual black slacks and soft grey blouse. She had learned quickly that authenticity wasn't in the fabric, it was in the posture, the way she held her chin when others tried to lower it. As she passed through the marble lobby, a young maintenance worker nodded to her with a shy grin. Another, from the IT team, offered her a quiet thumbs up. In the elevator, an older admin whispered, "About time someone like you got through that door." Raina simply smiled, but her hands were trembling. Just a little. Her office was quiet, warm with filtered sunlight and the faint scent of eucalyptus. On her desk sat a sealed envelope, unmarked. She opened it slowly. Inside was a folded note. "You lit the fuse. Now let it burn through every locked door. M." She didn't need a signature. Across town, in a boardroom lined with oil portraits and 100-year-old traditions, the senior board of Donovan Global was gathering. Some came in support of the change, some came with concern. Eleanor Pierce, the oldest sitting board member, tapped her pen with purpose as she addressed Malik Donovan directly. "Let me be clear, Malik. We're not voting against the woman. We're voting against precedent, against what this might say to other companies, to investors. What happens if this initiative leads to more unvetted promotions?" "We lose credibility." Malik leaned forward slowly, his elbows resting on the gleaming oak table. "Respectfully, Eleanor, we already lost credibility the moment we decided talent had to wear a tie to be believed." She stiffened. "You're using emotion over strategy." "No," Malik replied. "I'm using reality. You think our competitors aren't already poaching multilingual, multidisciplinary talent from the corners we've ignored? We're not being progressive. We're catching up." Another board member, a younger man named Seth, spoke up. "Maybe it's not about precedent," he said. "Maybe it's about perspective. The person who can speak to 9 different clients in 9 different languages without a script might be exactly the future we need." That's when the vote came. 7-2. Motion passed. Back at headquarters, Raina was in a planning meeting when the news came through. Malik texted her one word. "Done." She exhaled, leaned back in her chair, and for the first time in weeks, allowed herself to feel the weight of it. Not relief. Not triumph. Vindication. A soft knock at her door broke her thoughts. It was Miguel, the night janitor, who had clapped first at her speech. He held a small box wrapped in brown paper. "This came to the front desk. Said it was for you." She opened it. Inside was a single object, an old brass nameplate, scuffed and tarnished, but still legible. Cynthia DeLay, Cultural Liaison, unofficial, and taped to the back. "Now it's official." Raina swallowed hard, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Later that afternoon, the Voice Initiative hosted its first open seminar in the Atwater Room. Over 60 staff from across the company attended, from shipping clerks to cafeteria workers to mid-level tech support. Raina stood at the front, no notes, just her voice. She told them the story. Not the polished version, but the real one, about pushing mops while memorizing syntax structures. About watching promotions pass while knowing she could translate contracts better than the ones who signed them. About being ignored, until she wasn't. Then she said this: "Talent doesn't wait for permission." It doesn't hide in resumes or Ivy League badges. It walks beside you, fills your coffee. Wipes your conference tables. You've been looking past it. I'm asking you now, look again. Applause didn't explode. It rolled, like a tide building. A week later, CNN Business ran a feature. From janitor to executive, how one woman's languages rewrote a company's playbook. Within days, other companies reached out to ask about adopting the Voice initiative. And on the following Monday morning, a woman walked into Rayna's office in maintenance coveralls. Nervous, clutching a small notebook. I heard you speak Arabic last month, she said. I speak Pashto, Farsi, and Urdu. I'd like to help, if you think there's room. Rayna smiled, gestured to the seat across from her. There's always room. Outside, the building buzzed as it always had. But inside, everything had changed. Because when one door opens, the light doesn't just spill out. It pulls others in. And for the first time, Donovan Global wasn't just speaking to the world, it was listening. If you believe in stories like Rayna's, in voices that rise from the quiet corners and rewrite the rules, then follow our channel. Share the story. Be part of the ripple. Because brilliance never needed permission, it only needed a chance.